and welcome to today's episode of the World Class Real Estate Podcast. My name is Mark Worrell and I'm joined by Mr. Ian Macbeth. Today's episode is sponsored by Iceberg Digital. Good morning, mate. How are you?
I'm a bit ropey today. I'm a bit run down, but it's been a positive week, actually. We completed on a new building. I say new building, our first building.
Congratulations.
We were renting office space. 3 different offices over the last 5 years, but we finally bought one. For those watching video, that little document there that you can probably see on my blackboard is table planning for the new middle floor of the building. Excuse me. So that was quite a big moment to be officially commercial property owners, first time commercial buyers. So that was exciting. Got a new person starting today, which I'm excited about. Head of growth for the group as well.
Great name.
Head of growth, yeah. So Tom's going to come in and effectively take a little bit of the initial sort of growth and expansion for Survey Network, for Avocado, and for Mortgage Tribe off my hands, Luke and other Toms. So really excited for that. Good guy. Been in the industry for a long time. Good guy being the important part of it, actually, because for that type of role, you can probably find, like internally recruity type people. You can find interesting characters, but we didn't promote the role. I just spoke to Tom directly, and it was something that just synced in and worked. Yeah. So timing was just right. So a couple of big milestones, actually. But yeah, like I say, I feel a little bit ropey. Not a lot of sleep last week with the final leg of this triple challenge that I've been doing. So I missed like 2 nights sleep, and it just it got me yesterday. The lurgy got me yesterday, where I'm just feeling a bit rough. But yeah, ready for today. How about you?
Yeah, all good, mate. You said to me before that you were feeling a little bit down, which is all right because I'm feeling a little bit up. So hopefully after this sort of 20 minutes, half an hour, we can get you back up. I'm not surprised that you're feeling potentially a little bit run down. When we got together a couple of weeks ago, you said that maybe you'd pushed your body a little bit far and then went and did it again. So let's just talk about the race very quickly and the 3 challenges, because you got injured in the first race, got through the second race. How did the third race go?
Yeah, so I mean, Chester 105-mile race was like 10 weeks ago, and I was peak trained. I was really good training block, really disciplined, healthy, fit. Smashed that race, came 9th, quickest I've ever done 100 miles as well. But the result of that, after doing those sort of races, is there is some niggles sometimes, and I had this weird like shin injury which stopped me running. So then I couldn't train for the next 6 weeks, basically, and then did Snowdonia, which was, without question, the toughest. And I underestimated it because the distance was less 66 miles. But the elevation was just brutal. And untrained mountain legs. I managed to get round. I had to get round because Ed, that I'm doing this triple challenge with, we did Chester together. We started Snowdon together. But I found out that he had tapped out about halfway in. So then the pressure was on to make sure I finished, because we were doing this charity kind of triple challenge. And I just wrecked myself, basically. Just the mind grabbed me through the race, and the body was just, the last like 25 miles were just treacherous. And I came out of that with a quad injury, basically, which was pulling on my knee. And it was 3.5 weeks ago, basically. So then we had Ireland, which was the final leg of the challenge, which was running across Ireland from Dublin to Galway. This was a self-supported, what's known as an FKT, like a fastest known time. So effectively the route, believe it or not, Ed created on ChatGPT, with checkpoints as well for Tim, who was crewing us. And the plan was just to run across Ireland self-supported. So it wasn't a race as such. It was just a challenge. And then his family, because his father-in-law is suffering from this fibrosis of the lungs, effectively, was meeting us at the end. I kind of just booked the flights and said, look, I don't know if I can run 2 miles, 3 miles, 30 miles. I'll just come and support you the best I can. Ran 15 miles, realised that I wasn't going to be able to finish the race, and then did the thing that I don't normally do, actually, which is I put ego to one side and said, rather than breaking myself and running 30, 40 miles, I'm going to pull the plug at mile 20.
Yeah.
And then I'm just going to support you. And hopefully by doing that, it will mean that I can recover over the next couple of hours and get back out with you when you need me. So in the end, that's what I did. It was a hot day. He was obviously fitter than me. I'd not trained for like 3 months.
Yeah.
And he was just locked in and focused to get it done. So yeah, I went back out with him and did the night shift. So I ran through the night with him when it gets a bit tough.
Yeah.
And then I ran the last 6 hours with him, last 5.5 hours. So I ended up running 70 miles, exactly half the race.
Only 70 miles, mate.
Yeah, well, he did the full 140. But it was a slog, 31.5 hours, I think, in total. And we were just driving around in between when I wasn't running, crewing, getting the chair set up, making sure that he was fueled. So yeah, I was kind of the hype man, but at the same time still running 70 miles with 2 nights with no sleep. So I'm just chuffed that it's finished, to be honest with you. And I've learned some big lessons this year about recovery, volume, what the body's capable of doing, not capable of doing, when to say no. And I won't be doing a challenge where I've got 3 massive events within 9 weeks of each other again. That is for sure.
I think it's really interesting to hear those learnings, and any mere mortal listening to the podcast will still think that's mightily impressive, running 70 miles with 2 long-standing injuries. So every credit for doing it. We'll drop the charity link into the show notes today if anybody does want to donate, because you got a bit of press as well, didn't you, over in Ireland?
Yeah.
About the events.
It's a small charity, actually. It's called the Irish Lung Fibrosis Association, and Ed's father-in-law is struggling with the disease. So it was quite monumental because we met the charity heads in Dublin, and they were actually going to like a version of Parliament, effectively, for a particular bill that they were trying to get on that day. So we started at 8, and at 10 o'clock, they were going in to kind of review their presentation to try and get some funding, which apparently went really well. So that was coincided with that. Claire, Ed's wife, who's Irish, was on the local radio station while we were running. And then it was in a couple of the local press as well. And I think it'll probably get a little bit more press as the charity money goes up. I think we're over $5,000 now. We'll probably get to about six grand raise, something like that. So yeah, got quite a lot of press, and we were getting, because we were wearing the charity tops. It was the last part of it. We ran on the road, like Ed ran on the road for 14 hours, and they don't have pavements and stuff like that. And the cars fly. It's dangerous in Ireland running on the road. So we had like high vis on, but we're getting a lot of beeps and stuff like that. So it was quite well supported out there. They're very, very supportive. Everyone was like, "Oh, what's going on?" They all wanted to know, and people were kind of donating at pub side when we were stopping. In the UK, people were like, "Oh, you're crazy. What are you doing? Like, what's going on?" But they were like, they really wanted to know. They were really involved. So, but yeah, if we drop the charity link in, that'd be great. And yeah, I've got nothing now for the rest of the year until January. So I'm looking forward to a well-earned rest.
Yeah, I think when you do the ultra running as you do, I've got a couple of friends that do it, and I think it's almost like, I think there's a bit of a mindset about trying to find that point where you do push yourself as far as you think you can. I think the Snowdonia race, when you came on and talked about that was very much, I think you described it as just mind over matter, just grind it out and get through it. So I think, you deserve a lot of credit for putting yourself through that for a friend's, charity that presumably without your friend doesn't mean a great deal to you. But yeah, every credit. Let's talk agency. Let's talk a little bit about your head of growth and expansion. What we're going to talk about a little bit today is sort of expansion and growth, because we've had a couple of messages from agents who are looking at expanding, looking at trying to grow into new territories or open new offices. So we were just going to talk a little bit about that and sort of your journey with the building, with new recruits and what have you. So talk us through the office first of all, a little bit, and the plans for that, and a little bit about how that came along, because you mentioned you've been renting for 3 years. Commercial premises from a retirement planning perspective are always highly encouraged by the accountants, because the business can effectively pay the mortgage. Was that part of the thinking when you made the decision to go and buy something?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've followed a guy called James Sinclair pretty much since starting. I think he's got a book out called The Millionaire Party Guy, or Party Man, Millionaire Party Man, something like that. But very, very good business guy, very good marketer as well, very good, strong personal brand. And the first time I heard him talk on stage, he kind of drew this, like window-shaped quadrant. He basically said, look, this is your business today. This is your business where you want to get it to, 5, 10 years, whatever it is. This is your marketing team, and your marketing team turns business A into future business. Without it, you've got nothing. And then in the bottom right he said, this is your slow pounds, and your slow pounds are your property assets. And when the economy dives or when the market changes, your slow pounds is what keeps you going. And he kind of drew it, and I was like, well, in the industry we're in, like, that's really sensible. So we always had this 10-year project to get business A to future business. We've built out our marketing team. There's 6 in that team now. And the next trigger was to obviously get the slow pounds, get the commercial asset. And the commercial asset was very much around, he drives forward. If you buy the commercial asset, buy it twice the size you need, rent out half of it to cost neutralize it. So you're no longer paying rent, but also the tenant in the other half of the building is paying your finance. So effectively, you're kind of there in a version of free. The way it'll work for us is the tenant is paying the interest for our finance, and we're paying off whatever level we want to on the repayment.
Yeah.
So we could have that finance is projected for 10 years. I think we'll probably have it for maybe 6, 5.5, 6. And then we've got, the best part of £1 million asset paid for effectively, and the interest has been paid by the tenant. So what it also means is if we do expand, we've obviously got half the space that we could expand into as well. So it's kind of future proofed. So that was the strategy behind it, and I'd advise people do that, because I think, when you are investing in your own house, if you like, when you replace the kitchen, it's yours. You're not at the vulnerability of a landlord saying, I'm moving back in or I'm selling. And you can really kind of play the finance game, with your accountant as well. Because if we do make high profits, well, we're paying our own rent to ourselves, if that makes sense, which pays off our own finance of our own assets. So we can kind of change the levels of the rent a little bit to make it kind of more cost effective as well. So that was the plan behind the building, basically.
Yeah, it makes a lot, does make a lot of sense. Did you put it in a SIP? Did you resolve any VAT issues? We've got a building here, and it was always a big surprise. And when we rent the commercial buildings that are on our business park as well, the VAT is always a bit of a surprise to potential tenants or what have you. Did you? Not that we're going to get into accountancy advice here. I'm just interested.
Yeah, we had to pay VAT on it, so chunky amount of money, but you get the VAT back. 3 to 6 months later. Seems a bit stupid. Some people do like bridging finance on the VAT, but for us, we were kind of like, well, we'll pay the cash on the VAT, and then we just get it back. And effectively, it kind of pays for the fit out effectively, but we'll get it back. So we're like, pay for the fit out, and then we'll get the money that we paid for the fit out back from the VAT. So it's a bit weird. Don't know why they do it. There's obviously something in there. We just did it as a propco business, so it's just sat there as a sort of side profile. What was quite eye-opening actually was how easy it is for a business to get finance. Like how easy. Mike literally picked up the phone to someone and said, look, we're looking to get potentially finance. This is actually after we'd agreed the offer on the building. It was about a lettings portfolio. They were quite happy to lend us the best part of £1 million, like in our bank account the next day.
Nice.
It's like, what the hell? And it's not and most businesses will find that, that you can get finance very easily. We've always been with our business, spend what you've got and be quite reserved with the expansion. I think it's why avocado has grown, but it hasn't grown like catastrophically fast, is because we've kind of done it in the steps that fit within our comfort zone. But we could easily, and obviously with Tom coming on board as head of growth and a kind of rejiggle on the budgets, I would imagine our expansion will be over the next kind of 3 years. It will be quite aggressive, but in a good way. But yeah, it's amazing how easy you can just get finance. And people say, do you spend your money or do you spend the bank's? Like, I don't know. I'm still at the view, I'd rather have less debt, but some people are like, no, just borrow. Rich dad, poor dad mentality, isn't it? That kind of book about that. What's your view on that?
I think the idea to get the business to a place where you can self-fund your growth is a real strong one that you should do. But if you are looking for aggressive expansion, then taking funds from the bank is always going to, or funds from the bank or any external finance, whether it's an investor or whatever, any external finance can speed up your growth. I think in our industry, growth is often viewed as sales or number of boards, and often the bottom line is forgotten a little bit. And I think that's, more important than just saying, I've got £1 million business, or, we've got 52 offices. If you've got 52 offices, but you're making no money, you might as well have one office that makes more money. The cost of finance can obviously affect that, but it depends on, it all goes back to your, 10, 20 year plan that you started talking about. Because if your 10-year plan is 50 offices, then it might be easier to get there by taking finance. I'm of the opinion that it's whatever works for your plan. But if you've not got a plan, then you need to sit down and make sure that you have got it, because actually, as you said, that external finance in one form or another can, certainly catapult your growth and expansion. I think the market is in a decent place whereby a lot of agents are, okay or succeeding in what they're doing and looking to expand. What sort of research would you do if you were looking into expanding into new areas that fit? Because I know you've got a very prescriptive way of saying, like, this is our target market, and if it doesn't fit, it doesn't fit. So what sort of research would you do before expanding into another area? Say that you didn't know very much about that area.
Yeah, so we were talking off camera about getting our next face-to-face booked in, and we recorded last time in Coventry. So I'll just use Coventry because it's got no reference to either of us as a sort of area. So I like to use a website called propertydata.co.uk. It's like £15 a month, and you can get decent kind of data from it to give you a really good understanding of where it is. So I just drew a map in the centre of Coventry, and let's say I was chatting to an agent who was interested in joining Avocado, or if I was, a traditional agent and I'm thinking about opening an office there, for example. So effectively, like a 2-mile radius of the centre of Coventry, what I can see is there's a 1-mile radius of the centre of Coventry, there is 20,000 households that I can see. So straight away, what I look at and I say, right, if you're a self-employed agent, that's the sweet spot. About 20,000 households, I believe, is the kind of sweet spot. It does slightly then depend on average house price and the estate agency fees. So what we need to know is, what's the average house price there? Because if the average house price is 180 grand versus 550 grand, obviously you've got a different business. But at the same time, if it's 500 grand average house price, but there's 35 agents and they're all doing 0.05 plus VAT, well, then that's a different market to 8 agents, 180 grand average house price, but everyone's charging 1.75%. So you kind of need to do that little bit of market research to find out what is the going rate effectively that people are happy to pay. And then where do you sit in that as well? From a business point of view, from a estate agency point of view, 10% of clients are always going to be cheap. So you've got to eradicate that 10% and then look at the next 90%. And of that 90%, 10% of those are probably always going to want Savills, Knight Frank, that end of the market.
Yeah.
And for us, we just eradicate that. They're not our competition. We don't want to spend loads of money on marketing up front, for a £2 million house that probably isn't going to sell. So we just go for that middle market. So what is that 80% in the middle, and what does it look like? Which kind of means for us, it's like 3s and 4 beds. So for Coventry, the 3-bed market, the average house price is 225, and the 4-bed market is 283. So for what we're used to at Avocado, the average house price probably about 100 grand lower than where we'd like it to be, in the centre of Coventry. So I'm looking at it thinking you're probably going to have to do about 1.5 from a unit transaction point of view to maybe an agent that's sat in the area where I live. But that can still work, but it's important we know that. And then we kind of need to just look at what's going on from like a stock point of view. So I like to look at what are the agents, who are the market leaders, and then I do a bit of analysis on what they're doing. So again, on property data, I can look at stock, I can look at the agents for sale. And if I go back to where we are here in Coventry, I can see that Prominence Estates are the number one. They're the market leader, not necessarily by units, but it actually values it by total value of stock. So I quite like that. It's quite a cool way to look at it. So I don't recognise them. So they're probably a local independent. So then I'll do a bit of social media research, bit of Google research, check out their website. Why are they market leaders? Are they running Facebook ads? What's their content strategy like on social media? Because if it's really strong, that's a bit of a negative actually for us, because it means they're already cracking that part of it. Normally it's not. And it's like, okay, well, the market leader has got a nice brand, but they're not doing any paid. They're just posting photos on Facebook. They're probably a good local community fit, good probably agency owner. Maybe they got one branch or two, I don't know. A bit of research on that. Bairstow Eves is second, so it's just a corporate. So we'll probably take a bit of business off of them, but not really competition. And then the next 3 up agents, ESL, Shoreland, they all look like independents. So that's quite refreshing for us, because it means, okay, there's one corporate, they're easy to beat. And then you've got a load of independents, which, other than the market leader, and I'm not trying to be a dick here, but the brands look pretty clip art. So I would imagine from a marketing point of view, we can have a fair play with those. That's just the kind of the basis of where I would probably have like the second conversation with an agent that's looking to expand into that area.
And would you be expecting that agent to have a lot of knowledge that you've just shared there based on property data? Presumably, if they're in the area and have worked in the area, they should know that sort of information anyway, shouldn't they?
Yeah. So I'm asking them to fill in the gaps on fees. I'm asking them to really get an idea of the local patches. So I've just done a central point, whereas normally what happens, especially in a big location like Coventry, is what they'd actually say is, well, I don't want to be central to Coventry because leaseholds and blah, 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 blah. It will be a little pocket off the side, little suburb off the side where they want to be. So we'll move the map. We'll see who's dominant there. We'll work out what the fees are, and then they'll know the competition. So they'll be like, oh yeah, Prominence, they've been around for 12 years. They're always market leader or whatever. Or they specialize in this, or they specialize in that. So they'll fill in those gaps effectively on what's going on with this stock. The other thing that I do like to look at, and again, property data supplies this, is the planning applications as well. Because I just want to know roughly, is it an area which is developing or is it stationary? It gives you a good understanding of the council. So Coventry centrally has got an application rate of 90%. Anything over 70 means the council want to invest and they want planning in. So that also means and you can't develop in the centre. So they're developing outside of it. But what it means is it's got And again, this is great for a traditional agent. It means that there's expansion outside of the town centre, and the council is approving 9 in 10 applications.
That's a lot, that, isn't it?
That's in the last year as well. So
it's a lot.
Yeah. If we look at the last 4 years, it would probably change it a little bit, but still, it's still high. It's still like 89% over the last 4 years. So that's quite interesting. And then it would just be a little bit of working with the agent on what's their identity want to be. Is it the right marketplace? Is it a brand fit for avocado?
Yeah.
Because I also find that with avocado, old money versus new money towns make a big difference. And what I mean by that is if you've got a town which is generationally developed, it's old money, old people don't move that frequently, older buildings, it's harder for us to crack that market with our brand than the new money, the wealthy younger families, good jobs, Tesla's on the drive, Amazon Prime all day long. That's our market. And if it is that market, it'll work, basically.
Yeah, because the time on social and social content is such a big part of marketing
just
strategy.
The connection as well, like just because that's who we are. So I've got someone from Amazon Prime knocking on my door at least every 3 days.
Is that all?
At least every 3 days. We're going on a big holiday soon, so it's probably a bit more frequent at the moment. But those are the types of people. There's a Tesla on the drive, so they're the types of people that we work really well with as a brand. So I think it's also important you know your market. That's a good thing.
You know your market, and that comes back to the ideal client a little bit as well, doesn't it? Who are you? You mentioned you're not looking at the top 10, you're not looking at the bottom 10%. And I think that's one of the things that, to be fair, that I am learning from you is in terms of that ideal client and knowing that actually you're going to get a decent tribe, but not everyone's going to like what you do or how you do it. But that's all right, because actually, if you are trying to appeal to everyone, you just come across vanilla.
And the thing that I think we're talking about mistakes now that you can look at things from a high level, and now you've been in the game for a long time as well. And let's talk more traditional office locations. I think the growth plan, from what I saw where I was previously for 16 years, there's a geographic growth plan. So it's like, right, we're in this town, 3.5 miles up the road is the next town. And you try and like grow out a map. It's like a heat map. Yeah. Even though, where I am now, or the 2 markets that we started in, Bracknell and Wokingham, totally different marketplaces. Mike went after Wokingham because that's where he went to school and he grew up. I went after Bracknell because that's where I've worked as an agent for 16 years. And they're totally different markets. Ex-local authority, average house price, 380 in my town, fast volume, 4 agents do £1 million out of that area every single year. Wokingham, different kettle of fish altogether, 500 grand average house price, old money town, strong schools, people want to live there, but people can't afford to live there. If you kind of follow that geographic map, I don't actually think it's the right way to do it. I think you have to follow your client. And there's a local agent that launched similar time to us around here, and they grew to 5 offices like wildfire. They were doing an office every 9 months. And we were like, that's really, really expanding. And everyone from the outside was like, wow, they're doing amazingly well. But me and Mike were like, well, none of those markets link up. Like, there's no reason why someone would go there. All they were doing was finding premises on the high street, good premises on the high street, and going, we'll take that one. But there was no link from market to market. And they've closed one of them. They might have closed 2 of them. And they're pulling back massively on staff at the moment because they expanded not too aggressively, but poor strategically, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that is the old-fashioned estate agency way of just trying to piece a market together. Like you say, a heat map, because the idea being that if they commute or whatever, they drive by and they'll already know the brand. But actually, knowing the brand and fitting the brand are two very different things. It's all well and good for somebody to know what your brand looks like, but actually what they need to do is they need to connect with your brand and it to appeal to them, because loads of people could know your brand, but actually they're not it goes back to the ideal client. They're not the ideal client, and therefore it's completely irrelevant. They might know the brand in a bad way as well as potentially in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other thing I think from a future planning perspective is, what's the rental market like? Especially for a traditional agent, probably more so than a self-employed, is what's the rental market like? So with Coventry, for example, average 3-bed was, I think, said 225. Average 3-bed rent is 1,200. So it's got a pretty good yield, and there's quite a lot of transactions going on there from a rental point of view. So even the average 2-bed price is over $1,000, and that's a really nice yield. So it's got a good place to grow a lettings business by the looks of it. So that's another thing that you kind of want to be aware of, and what's going on there. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of getting into student lets and HMOs and stuff like that personally, but if the market's kind of normal residential, then happy days basically. And looking at the stock on that, Prominence are 3rd on market share, and Cloud9, who were 5th on sales market share, are top on lettings. So you'd have a little look at this Cloud9 estates and say, right, they're obviously a more letting dominant agent. Yeah. What are they doing to attract landlords? Their average rental price is £1,500 per month. So they're doing good stuff. They've got 21 units live as it stands now. So you'd look at that as well, I think, and do a bit of sort of market research on that basically.
So before today, I'd never heard of this property data website. Casey did mention one. It might have been that one, to be perfectly honest. I was having a look on some of the like house metric and stuff, but you're not looking at Rightmove. Interestingly enough, that's not your go to, or will you have a bit of a browse?
No, I mean, property data breaks it down. So where I'm looking at market share, I'm looking at the Rightmove market share, but it's also got the on the market and it's got the Zoopla market share.
Okay.
So you can see it. You can also, like for Zoopla, for example, open rent is number 1, obviously. But then you can also see who's not on X, Y, and Z, because you can roughly work it out from the top 6. So that's interesting in itself. But no, I don't really do anything on Rightmove, to be honest. I mean, I've got 20A, I've got property data, and then the agent is also valuable.
Local knowledge.
Yeah, local knowledge. That is the key thing, is those suburbs where if you can crack a 2,500 estate which has been built in the last 10 years, and there's no agent in there because there's no, the shop is a co-op and that's it basically. There might be hairdressers there, and there's no. If you can crack that estate, you don't even need to get a car. You can just walk everywhere. We had Dan, didn't we, on from Dan and Neil? We'll get Neil on at some point, but that's literally what Neil does. He literally walks to valuations on that estate. He doesn't like doing a valuation if he has to get in his car.
That is a hyper local business, right?
Yeah, and they do $600,000 a year, the two of them. So it's not like it's it doesn't work. It works unbelievably well. So yeah, hyper local.
Do you think the turnover of those style of estates is much faster than if you're not on that sort of new build estate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we all get frustrated with the villages where you've got houses that were built in the 80s, 60s, 50s, whatever. Nice plots, big driveways, full cars parking, detached garage to the side. The people have been there for 30 years. They brought their kids up there. They're retired. They're mortgage free. My 2 neighbours are exactly the same. They're mortgage free. Their grandkids, come and visit them from time to time. They're pottering around in their garden now, I'm sure. But they're not moving. And those properties, they're not coming free. But if I went up the road to a development called Bucklers Park, which has been built probably in the last 6 years, everyone's moving.
Yeah.
Just the turnover's rapid. The townhouses, the detached 3-beds, the apartments, everyone's moving because it's just that growth cycle that people, we moved in, we didn't have a kid. Now we've got one kid. Now we've got two kids. Now the kids are a bit older. We need a playroom. Now we need a home office. Now we need a garage. Now we need 3 double bedrooms because we have to get 2 double beds in for the kids because they're going to secondary school. It just grows and that movement happens. So if you can get into those estates, especially for our brand, then you're making a killing. You can't fail, really. You have to really mesh your marketing strategy up to fail in those estates, I would say.
And what percentage turnover do you think happens annually in those estates then?
What, of the amount of properties that transact?
Yeah.
I don't know, to be honest. I would imagine it, if you look at the ones that have been built in the last 10 years, it's pretty high. I don't even know what the transaction rate is for properties in the UK.
Again,
1.5% or something
Mr.
like that.
Gates, I've always worked on 3% for some reason.
Yeah,
I'm sure it was Gates that had said if you use that, then you're not going to go far wrong on average. But the average is averages across the country is so vast. Like the difference could be, incredible.
The other thing that I think is quite interesting to look at is, again, you can get this from different reports, but what is the percentage of sale as well? You can easily find that out. So listing to sale. And some of the stuff that we look at after we come off property data is, well, how much of the stuff is selling? Because especially for a self-employed agent, if you're going into a marketplace where only 39% of the listings are selling, it's quite a low ratio at the moment. That's going to be really tough to get, banked in that first 6 months, because you kind of need to list, sell, bank within 6 months, really. If you're going to a market where it's sub 40%, that's going to be a slog because you're going to have to get it on. Not everything's shifting. Whereas if it's over 60%, you're getting 20% more turnover just on speed of sale, basically. So he's looking at those metrics. I think it was important. And notice nothing has been about, because we're 3 miles down the road or we're 4 miles down the road. It makes no difference. It helps that the brand is known, but if the brand is known for a lower marketplace or a different marketplace, no one turns around and says, I live in X county, do they? They live in the town or the village they live in. So it's got no connection at all, really.
Yeah, it's going back to that heat mapping idea that we talked about earlier.
Yeah. That's pretty much the first step. And then we'll build out a marketing campaign, a launch plan, kind of subject to the information that we've just found, really. And it's just connecting the identity of the agent with the marketplace. And also, I think if you're looking at it again, going back to, the traditional agents that are listening, the independents that want to expand, I think also there's other things that I probably hadn't considered previously that consider now. How cheap is money? We spoke about how easy it is to get money. But what are the rates doing on commercial finance at the moment? What's the fees for commercial finance? My friend that I run with, that I did this triple challenge with, is very high up at Oracle. And when you're running with someone for 24 hours, you cover a lot of conversation. And he always says to me, from a tech point of view, they're one of the top 10 biggest companies on the planet, Oracle. But he said, from a tech point of view, the cheapness of money dictates the growth rate. So if money is cheap, all tech firms are investing in new staff. They just grow, expansion. If money is expensive, they're all pulling back. So effectively, depending on the account that you're running, depends on that from a global entity. And I think if you're looking to expand, do it when the money's cheap. Don't do it when the money's expensive, because you're going to probably get a 10-year deal, something like that. So
yeah, it's a very good point, that something, and we would often think, all right, we'll expand when business is good. It's a natural thing to think business is going well, build a bit of pot of money, expand. But actually, that is probably the more important thing, because that then looks at bottom line again, like I said before, doesn't it? It's not just looking about, right, okay. And also, we know from this business, it is you're going to have downs, we're going to have recessions, you're going to have booms. So it's very cyclical by the very nature of it. So actually, like you said, if you can secure something for 10 years, and it all goes back to having that 10-year plan and finding the right time to pull the trigger, doesn't it?
It's an investment, isn't it? So if you're in a really good place as a business, chances are the market's quite strong, which means a lot of other businesses are also in probably quite a good place as a business. So if you can sandbank that and almost go, right, we're going to use that. As soon as the market takes a bit of a turn, that's when we're going to strike. It's a bit like, the example of using like Tesla stock, for example. Tesla stock was out of control, wasn't it? And then Elon's jumped on with Trump, and now all of a sudden people are like egging Teslas. Yeah. And it took this massive nosedive, and everyone was like, oh, sell my Tesla, blah, 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 blah. My stock's dropped. But just buy the stock then.
Yeah.
That's the best time to buy the stock.
The old city trader.
Yeah. And you got to look at it that way, I think, is, okay, when is the best time to strike? When the business in the high street is struggling and you can get a good deal on the premises, you can get good finance, people are really willing to lend, and you get the best deal, and you put your time and energy into it. Okay, the market might not be as buoyant as it was before, but it will change. It will be 6-9 months, and then you've bought at the bottom and you've grown up to the top. So strategy of timing is like really important, especially if you're doing that traditionally, because I don't know, you probably can't launch a business for less than 100 grand these days to kit out an office and market and all staff. 100 grand, probably 200 grand in year one of costs. So you got to get that right, because that's a chunk of cash for any business, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Rightmove report came out actually, Mark. I was going to say Rightmove report came out this week as well. I don't know if you've managed to have a look at that statistically.
It was interesting. I had a quick glance over it. It was yesterday, wasn't it? I had a quick glance over it. It was interesting to see that the average asking price, uncharacteristically for this time of year, has dropped. Hopefully that's a sign that sellers and agents are getting on board with the market that we're now faced with. Yeah.
I think it dropped like 0.3% or something like that. Which is, like you say, it doesn't normally happen in this time. But yeah, I think stocks up. And if you look at, I think it was 3% up on buyers year on year, which the month before was 4% down on buyers, which maybe is where that link comes into pricing. I think we spoke about that on the show, actually.
Yeah.
But stock is up 11%. So whereas before it was like 10, 11, 12, they were all about the same, up on stock, up on sales, up on buyers. Now stock's up at 11%, buyer growth is 3%, and sold subject to contract growth is 6%. So there is a clear change, and I think that will see prices balance out a little bit for the market now as well.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's refreshing that we're seeing those asking prices just come down a little bit. And I think part of that is about clients seeing price reductions as so ineffective at the moment. We've talked about it previously, and I've said it to clients. We shouldn't reduce the price. No, it's the exact opposite. You should just go on at the right price. But that link between buyers and asking prices. So we've still got more buyers in the market, but they've got so much more choice. I don't know about you, but I'm always saying to people, we're at this decade high of amount of properties that are on the market, and people say, well, that's strange, because we look all the time and we can't find anything. I'm like, yeah, but statistically there is more than there has been for a long time, and that brings challenges in agency. You mentioned it before. If you've got a turnover of 40%, then actually you've got to service 60% of those clients that are potentially never even going to pay you. So we've got to get that right as agents, as a business, as an industry, because I think those price is just so important. If you are letting clients dictate their own price, you're in the wrong market at the moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, Watkins put a really good stat on the weekend that I share with the Avocado WhatsApp group. I've got the graphic here, actually. If you find a buyer for your house in less than 25 days, chances of you moving is 94%. If it takes more than 100 days to find a buyer, that drops to 56%.
Yeah,
40% swing on speed.
That is insane. The stat that I've said to clients in terms of reduced prices that Rightmove put out, if you have to reduce the price of your home, it is 50% more likely to fall through. I mean, that is insane.
Yeah.
Like, just get it right first time.
Yeah. That reduced label now on the portals. I've said it time and time again. It's like an advert. People are just scrolling. They don't want the reduced stuff. And that's why I think that's why I think agents have got to do more to take control of that, and do more to make waiting lists and do more to be exclusive. We've obviously got our hashtag Beat the Portals campaign that we roll, but agents have got to do more to take control of the listing, because before launch, that's where you've got the power.
Yeah, absolutely right. Yeah.
Once you give it to the general public, you lose the power, and it's really important that you've got something in your sort of toolkit, really, to be able to create that buzz, that exclusivity, that waiting list mentality. That is how all the good marketing companies, if I was selling caps, for example, because they're above my head here, everything that I would be doing is the waiting list design, before it launches. Let me know if you want. It's all about that kind of urgency campaign.
Yeah.
Because then you want this thing that the people don't have. Whereas the ones that are just on the site, they're just there as fillers, really. But it's the waiting list sales. They're the ones that really pop. That's the world that we live in now, basically.
Yeah. It's a very good point. I hope there's been some value there. I think it was really interesting to talk expansion, find out a little bit more about data and what have you. And then we've gone into Rightmove Price Index. We probably should wrap it, because I reckon we could probably be here all day. Yeah. Maybe getting a bit ranty on prices and that sort of thing. We say this every week, and we really mean it. We do this because we love our industry. We want to see it improve and get better. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please share it out on socials, or more importantly, share it with colleagues who maybe don't know about the show already. Thank you very much once again to Iceberg Digital for sponsoring. I'm Mark Worrell. He's Ian Macbeth. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you again next week.